All right. Welcome to Study Abroad for Modern Languages students. This is a session for Study Abroad Week at DePaul, and we are super excited to welcome faculty and alumni to this session. My name is Cara Miller-Brighton, and I'll be leading this session. We have with us DePaul faculty member and program director of Study Abroad, Anna Suchak. And we also have some alumni joining us today. We'll have Annie Kasparian, Allison Payne, and David Prunty. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk a little bit about study abroad and give an overview for students who are studying modern languages. There's so many options available to you. We have a lot of programs at DePaul. We have 90 programs in 44 different countries. We try to have a little bit of everything for everyone, a little bit of something for everyone. And we have term-long programs where a student can study abroad at a partner school overseas for one semester or even an entire academic year. We also have short-term faculty-led programs where you would study with a DePaul professor. Here in Chicago, you would take a course, and then after your course concludes, you would travel with your classmates, with your DePaul professor, abroad to the destination that you had studied. Students can go abroad during the fall quarter or during December intersession. They can go abroad for the winter-spring semester, or even spring break and summer. So you can go abroad. Short-term programs usually last between 1 and 3 weeks. And term-long programs can be a 16-week semester, or as I mentioned before, you could be abroad for 9 months for an entire academic year, taking courses at a partner school overseas. If you are interested in going abroad during the summer or fall or academic year, you would want to apply by February 1st for those programs. If you're interested in going abroad December or winter, spring or spring break, you would apply by May 1st. Each program, when you study abroad at DePaul, the typical fee structure is such that you would have a program fee. So each program has its own program fee. And each program fee includes its own inclusions. Maybe on a short-term program, you'll notice that the program fee would include airfare for a group flight, or it would include accommodations or a certain number of meals. On term-long programs, you'll see that the program fee includes different things. It might not include airfare, it might not include housing, so each program is different. And then tuition is also assessed for the number of credit hours that you take on your program. I always recommend to students that they check in with a financial aid counselor at DePaul to look at their tuition amounts and to look at their financial aid package. Your financial aid absolutely follows you onto a DePaul-sponsored study abroad program, and there are scholarships available, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we recommend that students really save their liberal studies learning domains for study abroad. It's very easy to earn credit, take courses that can help you earn your liberal studies learning domain credit. And also we want to talk a little bit about the modern language option. And so actually I might ask Anna, Professor Suchak, to talk a little bit about the modern language option. And while she does, I'm going to upload a flyer into the chat feature so that you all can download the modern language option flyer. Thank you, Anna. Please
Great.
tell us more.
Sure, no problem. So the modern language option is a feature that allows students who are getting a BA to take 3 language courses and use them to replace 3 learning domain courses. And the reason I'm sort of differentiating between BA and BS students is that BA students often have a language requirement where BS students don't. So really sort of the crux of the modern language option is once you've completed your modern language requirement for your college, Maybe you've done that by taking a year of language. Maybe you've done that by having some high school language or having an AP credit or something like that. You're eligible for the modern language option. If you're in a college like the College of Business or CDM, you may not have any modern language requirements, so you automatically are eligible to use the modern language option on day one. And so, as Cara said, for students who are studying abroad on a program that emphasizes language, where you're taking courses in a target language, the modern language option is a great way to make some room in your schedule to accommodate those courses. So that's it in a nutshell. I think the flyer that will be in the chat, kind of breaks it down a little more, but it's a pretty straightforward system. Basically, the way that it works after you take these 3 language courses is you talk to your advisor, and your advisor manually moves them into 3 domain slots. And there are a few sort of fine print details around it, like you can't use all 3 courses for one domain. There's a little bit of fine print stuff here, but the flyer should have everything on it.
Wonderful.
Is that good?
That's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And so when you study abroad, we do our best to keep keep students enrolled into a credit hour limit of between 12 and 18 credit hours, because your tuition will stay the same when you're enrolled in up to 18 credit hours. Once you go over, if you pursue a study abroad program that offers a higher number of credit hours, like for example, if you are looking at Australia, or if you're looking at a France program, our Sciences Po program, you might earn up to 24 credit hours on those programs. And so whenever you go over the 18 credit hour limit, there is an increase in tuition. So that's something that we want to make students aware of, so that we can work with you about what is going to be sufficient for you financially. How can you afford the study abroad program, both in terms of tuition and the program fee? So we recommend strongly that you work with your academic advisor to seek course approval for your degree progress, which means, take a look at the study abroad programs and make a list of the courses that are offered on that program, and then consult your academic advisor to look at what are the courses that are still outstanding in your degree progress, and how do those study abroad courses plug in to your degree progress. How do they help you fulfill those requirements so that you can stay on track to graduating? So it's always a good idea to use a study abroad course planner form, to consult your study abroad advisor, and to consult your academic advisor, so that the 3 of us can work in collaboration together to make sure that you can go abroad and still be on track to graduate on time. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about scholarships. We have scholarships for students in our office. From the DePaul Study Abroad office, we automatically consider students, if you apply to a DePaul sponsored study abroad program, we automatically consider you for one of our scholarships. A DePaul Study Abroad scholarship ranges between $1,000 and $5,000. And last year we were able to give out about $500,000, just about $500,000 out in study abroad scholarships. So we take into account your financial need and your academic merit. So we basically award scholarships based on your GPA, a combination of your GPA and your demonstrated financial need. So I would also recommend that you seek out additional scholarships. There is a scholarship from the Department of Modern Languages. There's usually 2 awards, each of $500, I believe, per term. And there are external scholarships even outside of DePaul. So we would recommend to students that you look at the Benjamin Gilman Scholarship run by the U.S. Department of State. That's a great scholarship. I think it goes up to $8,000, so it's quite a big chunk of change. And the State Department wants more students to go abroad. They want more Americans to engage in citizen diplomacy, right? And so this is a way to help fund your experiences abroad. You can look at other scholarships from the Fund for Education Abroad, and you can look at any scholarship that basically is relevant for you. So think about the identities that you might hold For example, I'm an Italian, part Italian, and I found a scholarship from the Daughters of Italy years ago when I studied abroad, and I won the scholarship just because of my ethnic heritage. So even though I was studying abroad in France, so think about any cultural affiliation, cultural heritage that you have, religious affiliations that you hold, different, even gender. You'll find scholarships for females in higher education. So think about what is relevant for you. Look at scholarships for the destination that you're going to. Look for scholarships based on the curricular area that you are studying, and apply for as many scholarships that you are eligible for as a way to fund your experience. I always say study abroad does not have to be expensive. I did it. If I could do it, anyone could do it. So I would definitely recommend that you have questions about these things, please let us know. Next, we're gonna, I'll turn it over to Professor Suchak, and she can share more about her experience with short-term programs and kind of give a point of view from a faculty. Thanks, Anna.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll say a few things about the programs that I've developed and run. So I've sort of been involved in study abroad for a long time since I started at DePaul, and I've been involved in the creation of both long and short-term programs. But as Cara said, really the short-term programs are the programs that faculty lead, and the long-term programs are programs that students sort of go abroad on their own, and sometimes they have like support systems on site. But I've developed two short-term programs, one to Vienna, one to Berlin. Vienna was the first one and Berlin was the second one. And all of these short-term programs sort of revolve around a certain theme. And as Cara said, before you leave, you take two courses, by two different faculty members that are about some facet of this theme. And so the idea there is that when you finally, end up on site, wherever that site happens to be, you're kind of, landing as an educated, participant in the culture instead of just popping in, as a tourist who doesn't have any familiarity with the place that you're visiting. And so just to say something about my own experiences with study abroad, the first program that I developed to Vienna was a program that revolved around coffeehouse culture in turn of the century Vienna. I taught a course on art, sort of arts in general around Vienna 1900, and my colleague who taught the other course taught a course on food, basically. So it was a great program. It was really fun. We were in Vienna visiting a lot of coffee houses, going to museums, listening to music, looking at art. It was really lovely, and that was in the December intersession. So like Cara said, these programs run between a week and 3 weeks. That one was kind of on the longer side, so we were getting close to 3 weeks on site right after Thanksgiving to kind of like the week before Christmas, thereabouts. So it was timed well for students who celebrated those holidays because they could be back here at home if they wanted to be with their families. And then the second program that I developed was a program to Berlin called Navigating the Refugee Experience. I developed that with a different colleague in the Department of History. And my course, so I'm a German professor, my course was on multicultural Germany, and her course was on the history of human rights in Europe, which sort of gave our students, again, this kind of like broad foundation to all of these ideas that are surrounding the question of, migration and refugee experience in Europe broadly, but also in Germany more specifically. If you know anything about Germany, you probably know that in the last 5 years, they've accepted over 1 million refugees into the country. And so, that one's a little bit shorter. We're there for about 2 weeks. We did our first iteration December 2018. I mean, I can't even keep the year straight anymore. I think it was December 2018, and we were planning on going this past summer, but of course, COVID-19 put a damper on that. So, we were ready to go and we had our students lined up, but then things, changed dramatically all of a sudden. I'm just looking here at the slide and I see some of the other things here. So, I mean, of course, to the second point here, discussing how programs operate on the ground, a lot of that, of course, is variable depending on the program you're on. But like Cara said, the fee that you pay, especially for a short-term program, covers quite a bit. So sorry, there's like somebody drag racing outside of
No worries.
I don't know what's happening outside. Again, speaking from my own experience, we often told our students, like, you really just need pocket money and everything else. pocket money and money for some meals. So some of this is culturally specific, like in Europe and certainly in Germany and Austria. If you're staying at any kind of hotel, your breakfast will be included, right? And so like our students, if they planned well and were frugal, they could like eat a massive breakfast and then, you know, have a small dinner on their own and basically, you know, eat quite cheaply on a daily basis. I see David like nodding knowingly. I'm sure Italy is similar, right? Like a massive continental breakfast, and then you can kind of like make do over the course of the day. Um,
Totally.
but yeah, so like our program fee included the flight, the hotel, all of our cultural excursions, all of our public transportation, right? Like we were also paying any guest speaker that we, you know, invited to interact with our group. We would give them an honorarium. So the pressure is kind of off for the students because you're not really thinking about like budgeting everything down to the cent for everything you're going to do for 2 or 3 weeks. You really just need to consider like, what will my expenses be if you're going over the December intersession? Maybe you want to bring gifts home for family or friends, and that's like another, you know, little thing that you need to budget for. But I think generally, and maybe I'm speaking like out of turn here, Cara, but my sense is that the programs on the whole are quite affordable for what you
Yes.
get, right? Which is
Yes.
several weeks on site with almost everything paid for. If you were to do that a la carte or something just as a single traveler, it would be, you know, 2, 3, 4 times the expense. So it really is a, I think, worthwhile thing to invest in. Plus you're going with faculty who are experts either in this place or in the ideas that surround the theme of your trip. So you really are getting something quite worthwhile out of the experience. I'll say something, am I talking too long, Cara?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, then I'll say something about how the courses are broken up. Again, you know, this can vary from program to program, but as I said, kind of in my introductory comments, these courses are generally, these programs are generally associated with 2 courses. Sometimes it can be a little different if you're a graduate student, but you know, we're really talking, I think, right now about undergraduate experiences. And so the way that my colleagues and I, in both of the programs I ran, sort of, you know, divided up the work is that we would have, you know, students meeting on a pretty standard 2-day-a-week schedule, except one day a week they would see me and the other day of the week they would see my colleague. And so you weren't taking the basically equivalent of 2 courses, even though you were getting material from both of us, because it didn't make sense for us to like teach you one course, you go to Berlin, and then like you get all the rest of the material once you get back. You know, that kind of is senseless, right? And so the way that the course appears on student schedules is that, for example, in the fall quarter, just my course would appear on your schedule because we don't want to load up your schedule with our study abroad courses. But you're meeting me and my colleague, right, and the other faculty member. And then when we get back in the winter quarter, the second course appears on your schedule, but you really are not doing much work. There may be like 1 or 2 last debriefing meetings, maybe a group meal, your final project is due in the winter, but there's not like a 2-day-a-week meeting. So some students actually find that to be really nice because they have a little bit of like extra room in their weekly schedule because they're not having those 2-day-a-week meetings. And so, you know, again, that's how we ran it. I don't know if that's how every other faculty pair runs it, but from my understanding, it is something kind of similar to that in terms of like how the courses are distributed and how it works. And I think students found that to be quite manageable. And once you get back from the program, it is also just nice to see each other again because you've kind of like bonded, you've had this like, in some cases, really intense experience on site, and then you come home and it's like, you know, it's like you fall off of a cliff or something. And so seeing that group again and, you know, kind of getting back into that dynamic can feel really great. So, I mean, that's maybe the long and short of it. I can say anything else, Cara, that you think would be useful here, but that's in a nutshell my first thoughts vis-a-vis short-term programs.
That's great, and I really do appreciate explaining to students too how a short-term program is structured, because sometimes I like to call it a study abroad sandwich a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Where you prepare and you have your course before you leave, and And you might not meet, all 10 weeks. You might do meetings, 5 or 6 meetings. It's a little bit different, structured differently. And then you go abroad and you travel and you have these experiences, right? That makes up that experiential learning. And then you get back and you have, these debriefs and these reconnections with people that you befriended and bonded with and had this really unique, intense experience with. And it's really nice. And it really impacts my students. I get the question a lot, is it better to study abroad on a longer program and be abroad for 3 months? And I tell students, no, not necessarily. I mean, when you're abroad, even for 1 to 2 to 3 weeks with a group of other students, you're really sharpening your team building skills because you're traveling with this group of people and you're with them, a lot of the time. And when you go abroad for 3 or 4 months, you're sharpening other skills. You're sharpening your independence and your self-efficacy. And so it really, whichever program you do, you're going to benefit in different ways. So I appreciate you speaking to that. Thank you.
Cara, if I can just say one other
Yes.
thing to your
Yeah.
comment, I mean, something that, of course, in modern languages, we have so many students that study abroad, right? I mean, it's so sort of like fundamental to,
Mhm.
it is like the fastest, most immersive way to really like boost your proficiency. So we encourage it whenever it's possible for our students. But one thing that I encounter again and again is students who've done multiple study abroad programs. So they'll do multiple short terms, or short term will be a prelude to long term, or short term will spark an interest that leads to long term. So, there are lots of different ways. Of course, I understand, like, even given the affordability, it can be financially prohibitive, but like with all the support that's available, it doesn't have to be like a one time thing. And I often tell students, like, this is maybe the one chance you have to like have a chunk of time in your life to do this, depending on what you go on to do after graduation. So like seize it, because this may not come again. And so, one of the nice things about the short-term programs is that they are kind of wedged into these breaks. So you don't have to like take off a quarter or disrupt a sequence of courses you're in, like a long-term program, asks you to do. So you can like, fit in a December intersession program and then a year later do a fall term program or something. I mean, it sounds great. I'm getting
Right. Yes.
like,
And
I'd like
as
to do that right now. Yeah.
Totally, me too. If I could get back to France right now, I would. I would just get on a plane and go. And and we have two students at Sciences Po right now. So, um, but I agree with you very much. If students can study abroad multiple times in their academic career, this is why DePaul, has first year abroad programs, and we have, multiculturalism seminars with identities abroad for sophomores. We have, students typically go their junior year, but I'm always telling students, don't wait till junior year. There's a myth that you should study abroad in your junior year. You don't have to wait. You can go as a freshman. You can go as a sophomore. Of course, you can go as a junior and senior. But I agree. I mean, in terms of language acquisition, I do think longer, term long programs are better, because when you have more time to really be in that place, and possibly have a homestay family, live with a homestay family that can teach you, things about the language or gestures, and kind of serve as cultural informants, you can really learn and grow in that language. So I think for language acquisition, being abroad for a longer amount of time is great. But if you're unable to do that, then short-term programs can be just as beneficial, and help you, practice and get into that environment and understand that society. So I'd like to, echo your sentiments. Thank you. Great. Well, I think we will continue with uh, our session by having our alumni share their stories with us. And so I would like to introduce, we'll do a quick time check. It's about 3:27. So I think each of you have about 5 or 6 minutes to share your story. If you can tell us about your study abroad program, where you are currently, how did you decide on that program? How did it relate to your academics at DePaul? And how did it benefit you, not only as a modern language student, but as a DePaul graduate? And then if you can finish by sharing any advice that you would give to students as well. So let's have Ani Kasparian start us off.
Hi guys, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Cara and Anna, for this opportunity. I'm wearing my Global DePaul shirt to be very super corny. I would like to say that if you are not thinking about studying abroad, you're taking a huge opportunity and just like going meh and putting it in the trash. Like you should at least be thinking about it. And the study abroad programs, I mean, first of all, I'm so impressed with the scholarships. I wrote wow in the chat because I had no idea about that when I was there. And I remember how much I paid, and I think it was still manageable. Like, if you get a summer job for one summer, you can pay for the study abroad. Like, it is not impossible. And you leave with like so much goodness to put on your resume, to just add like with the language component. Even if you don't learn a language when you're abroad, like I don't know if you study abroad in a country that is not with your foreign language major or something, you still have that adaptability skill to put on your resume, and that's like really huge, and companies and jobs really like to see that. It shows that you're independent and you know how to make decisions and you're flexible. You know, like when I did the study abroad program in Mexico, in Merida, and you know, in Mexico not all the same comforts of the US are available. So and people know that, and jobs know that. So if you do this, it shows how adaptable and responsible and independent you are. So my study abroad program, as I just said, was in Merida, Mexico. I lived with a host family. I was there for 3 months in the winter. I went with Susana, who is now in a different department, but she used to be in the Spanish department. Does she still do Spanish classes, or did she fully make?
Susana is still in modern languages, but she also is in peace, justice, and conflict
Cool,
studies.
cool. So you could still have her, but we had so much fun there. And we all had a host family. And that was a really good experience. I think that no matter what, like if you have a host family, because host families, to be real, like it can go either way. But what happens is with any host family experience, you learn so much about the culture and the lifestyle and just everything you just could not get from living alone. So I mean, there was no horror stories at all, but just, you know, of course there are different styles of living, but what I'm trying to tell you is don't be scared of doing the host family thing, because you will learn a lot either way, and you will triple your knowledge by living with this host family. So we also did little trips to different places in Mexico. We actually went to 5 states. So the official name of Mexico is the United States of Mexico, fun fact. And we went to 5 different states, and it was really awesome. I think the farthest one we went to was, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name, but we went to, from Merida, which is the peninsula, we went 5 states up towards the capital, but we obviously never made it to the capital. It was way too far. But we went to so many different places, and you could see the culture change within the country as you move. And it was really fascinating to go to all of these states. And my favorite town in one of these states was San Cristobal de las Casas. And it was super cool to see an entire culture that you didn't know even existed. So you know how in typical America we're like, oh, you know, the Mayans, they died years ago. No, they didn't. They are still very much alive and living, and we worked with them especially in our intercultural part with service learning. We were able to go into areas of Merida that had a stronger purely Mayan population, and we were able to help revive and maintain the Mayan language by bringing in like books and things in Mayan to help the students learn both English and Mayan. It was really cool. And a lot of the people there still speak Mayan. And when we went to that specific state outside of Merida that had that town, San Cristobal de las Casas, we saw a whole different world. We went to an open air market where there was like everyone was like talking in Mayan. So like these are things that you could just never read about. You have to go there and see it. It was super cool, especially because, and this is funny, you can't take pictures there because the people actually think if you take a picture, their soul goes into that picture. So you can't read about it in books because there is no books because there's no pictures, so you gotta go. Okay, so there's nothing that is going to replace that experience. So I decided on this program because I was a Spanish major. As you can see in the presentation, I'm a Spanish and Arabic major and a French minor. And I decided I wanted to do a Spanish speaking study abroad. I was between Peru and Mexico, and of course there was a Spain one too. Mexico, I believe, was the cheapest at the time, and I feel like I got so much out of it. It was probably one of the best programs in my opinion because we did so much. As I said, with the travel, we also visited different areas. We went to all of the important monuments and attractions. Like we went to Uxmal, we went to Chichen Itza, we went everywhere. So it gave you a lot of like freedom to choose what you wanted to do, but also there was school time. So I took 4 classes, as did everyone. And it was a time where I was really able to focus on Spanish. So as you could see, I did a double major and a minor, and it's like, how did you do that with a study abroad? When I was a freshman, and this is like the piece of advice I just want to give everyone, when you come to DePaul, please start from the beginning with what are your preferences? Like, what do you want to do? Because you can pretty much do anything at DePaul. I did all of this in 4 years. I didn't do any summers, and I still got to do everything I wanted to do. So make sure you're planning really well. And like, I saved my Spanish courses for that winter quarter. So I didn't have an issue. So if you want to do even a minor in a language, save those courses for there so that the study abroad isn't interrupting anything. It's just part of your journey. So I loved Mexico because it really like included all the classes that I was interested in, including the service learning component, which I loved. And the kids were adorable. We still keep in touch to this day, and I actually went back and visited them a year later, which was like the best, and we had so much fun, and there were new babies and the moms, and it was just so much fun. I loved it. Okay, so I'm looking at your next bullet card. How did your study abroad experience benefit you as an MOL student in DePaul? I mean, my experience at DePaul was incredible, and it could not have been that way without my languages. It was so much fun. Like, the modern language department was like my family, and we had so much fun. I think Spanish is one of the most important languages in this country right now with the demographics, and I think that my time in Merida was so helpful in a way that, yes, it was in Mexico, but it was so far on the tip of Mexico that it was closer to Cuba than it was to the Distrito Federal, which is the capital. So it's really cool to be able to now, as an alumni, be like, oh yeah, I lived in Mexico. So everyone who's Mexican is like, yay! And then I'm like, and I lived in Merida. And then all of my Caribbean people are like, yay! Because it's close. It's not on the Caribbean, but it's very close. It's on the peninsula. So it's really cool because you get to see 2 kind of different types of cultures mixed in one. So Merida is like a mosaic. And by the way, if you want to do any kind of projects on your own, I actually did my own like research project there, and I submitted it to Creating Knowledge, that journal for LAS, and I got published. So y'all, study abroad, take advantage, okay? You never know if you're going to be a published author by the time you leave. So that is how that benefited me, and all of those things I was able to put on my resume, and having that on my resume qualified me as a Spanish speaker for many other things. I'm now in journalism, and Spanish is needed everywhere. So that is that. I know I'm talking a lot about Spanish, but Arabic and French were also hugely important, but the DePaul program I did was Mexico. Advice, I think I pretty much gave it, like, plan, take advantage of every moment, and definitely like consider the study abroad. There's like nothing better. And me and my study abroad friends still talk to this day, and we laugh about everything that happened, and we were just like we had so much fun. So I definitely highly recommend any program at the school. I've never heard someone come back and say it was bad. Every program is great. So definitely do that. And if you have any questions, hit me up. I will put my info in the chat if that's okay, Cara. And
yeah, and your email will be on the next slide along with everyone else's email. So yes, we're happy to connect people to you.
Now, I have a class because I'm actually getting my master's in journalism right now. So I do have to go. But is there anything else you need from me? Any questions from anyone? I don't know who's a student and who's a presenter here, so I just
no worries. If anyone has any questions for Ani, go ahead and unmute and ask now before she heads out. Otherwise, we'll be glad to share her email address with you all in the next slide, and you can just reach out to her directly.
I'm sad not to hear from David and Allison. You guys sound
I know they've got great stories.
Dang classes. Okay, questions? All right, I will put my info here, and thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for joining us, Ani. All right, I love your Radio Global DePaul shirt. All right, thanks so much. All right, so next we would love to welcome David to share his experience and with study abroad and how you know, studying language has benefited him and any advice you would give to students. Thank you. Welcome, David.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thank you, Cara. So I'm sad that I didn't wear my Global DePaul shirt. I did have my modern languages mug, but it's now sitting in the sink soaking. Anyway, so hi, everyone. I'm David Prunty, and I graduated from DePaul, I guess it was just a year ago. So that was just last year, 2019, but a lot has happened since then. Feels like 5 years. And I still live in Chicago, and I am a boring corporate person. I work in management consulting, and that's what I do now. So my study abroad program, I actually ended up doing the same program twice, and the second time it was kind of restructured. So it was like a program and a half. Like, you know, I did like another program sort of. So I did the language and culture immersion in Rome. And I went in the fall of 2017 as well as the fall of 2018. And the way it's structured is you go and live. Initially, the first year I went, you had to live in a homestay. The second year, you could choose between homestay and apartment. I still chose homestay. And basically, you take intense multiple hours a day language courses, and you're living with a family that only speaks Italian, and you're you know, you're not living in the center where everyone kind of speaks, well, you know, kind of speaks English. It's, I don't know, they try. It's cute, but so you're not like in the center where it's happening, but like you're outside where like no one speaks English, and it's truly a full language immersion. And it was incredible. Even the second time around, I was able to take some courses at a U.S. university that has a campus there. But I still never felt like, that was really the only time I was using the English language was in those courses, and I was still getting the full immersion experience that I had came for. But how I got to it the first time around, and kind of, you know, how it kind of related to my academic studies is I was in the university honors program, and there was a language requirement. And a little bit of background on me, my mother was born and raised in Italy, in Sicily. When she was 20, she moved to the US. She knew no English, and she's figured it out. And I happened here, and then I kind of grew up here. And unfortunately, when I was only 5 years old, my mother passed away. And again, she was the only family member that came here. So I kind of had a disconnect from my grandmother, aunts, uncles, everyone living in Italy. So I knew that I wanted to study Italian because I wanted to be able to communicate with that side of my family. And that was really it. At the time, it wasn't even a minor for me. And then I got there, and I started using the language and actually seeing how much your skills can accelerate from being there, and really how there is a difference between academic language and then the colloquial language that you're seeing in the day-to-day that people are actually using. You know, I knew like 25 verb tenses, but I couldn't order coffee. Like when I showed up, like there's an application that you need there. And so it was incredible. I fell in love with the place. I mean, I made amazing friends. I now feel like I'm a part of the host family, and I actually stayed with them the second time I went back, and I got closer to my relatives that were there. I got to see over 50 cities, towns, municipalities in Italy, and travel to other countries. So it was really incredible. And by the end of my second program, I was actually able to double major in my organizational communication degree, but also the Italian language. So that was incredible that just with 2 study abroad programs and going in, like Cara mentioned, to my academic advisor and being like, well, I think that this fits here and this is why you should count this for my art credit and this, that, and the other. I was able to get everything to count. I graduated on time and I had, this extra major that was incredible, as well as these amazing experiences and this connection to, really a side of my identity I never got to explore. And to this day, actually, so this kind of goes to, being a DePaul graduate, it was my job. I actually, just the other week, I gave a training session. I specialize in like training and development. So I gave a training session to a bunch of lawyers in Milan, Italy. So I gave an Italian training session. So that was really exciting. That was the first time I got to use my Italian formally for work. I had been to the office there before, but I never actually, had to present in it or anything. So that was really incredible. And also, this also speaks to the point of, I think Anna was saying that, there really are not times in your life where you can do something like this. And I'm excited to announce that coming up come February, March, I'm actually going to be moving to Italy and taking up residency. And after being there for about 40 to 60 days, I can apply for my Italian passport, because you have to do it by way of descent, and you can't apply at the consulate because it takes 3 years to get an appointment. It's a long story. But yeah, so I'm going to be moving there, taking up residency. And just today I heard from the host mom, and she was like, you can live with us. And like, I'll consider it. I don't know. I kind of want to live alone, but, but yeah, so that's kind of how, that's what I'm doing now with it, if that's where it's taking me. And the only reason I'm able to go back and do that is because I'm working remote. And so, because of the COVID-19 situation. So otherwise wouldn't have happened. Real life, sorry guys, it's fun, but it's also terrible. So you don't have the time to do what you used to be able to do as a student. So please take advantage. And then my other advice, I said it was so minor when I was saying this to Cara, but just, oh my gosh, pack light. Like, sorry, this isn't very inspirational and like profound, but you don't need everything you think you need. You need 2 weeks worth of clothes for warm weather, cold weather, a swimsuit, maybe something nice to wear once, and then like medication, not even all your cosmetics. The country probably has your cosmetics. Look it up in advance, but your products that you use, they probably have it. I brought 2 massive suitcases the first time I went. I did not open one. It was terrible. And then I had to pay so much money because I was bringing back, souvenirs and stuff. So that's honestly my biggest advice is pack light. Yeah.
I love that so much, David. That's great advice, and congratulations. I'm thrilled. I saw a bunch of us were applauding for you,
Thank you,
on
yeah.
on your future move to Italy, and I'm so delighted to hear that you'll be going back, and that was a way for you to connect with your cultural heritage, and I'm just thrilled for you. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm excited too.
Yes, thank you for sharing that with
Mhm.
us. Wonderful. And now joining us, or next up, our another one of our wonderful alumni. We have Allison Payne from Japan. Am I correct in saying so? Please, introduce yourself and tell us about your experience and any advice you would give to students. Thank you so much for being here, Allison.
Yes, so I'm so excited to be here, and this has been so great. I love success stories. So yes, my name is Allison, and I currently live in Kyoto, Japan. When I came to Japan 3 years ago with DePaul, and I never left. And one thing that was said previously was like the importance of planning, and I do want to stress, if you don't plan well, it is okay. Very okay, because I did my study abroad program my senior year, and it's a little stressful, but it was successful, and I never left. So I think my process to get to study abroad maybe is not as traditional, I would say maybe. And so I was actually a transfer student my junior and senior year, and I had traveled to Japan briefly on a short-term program in my originally, like my first university. And then when I came to DePaul, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm going to go to Japan. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it some way, somehow. And so I went to Kara at orientation and said, hello, my name is Allison, and I'm going to go to Japan. Help me. And that's kind of how that started, but I did not plan it. It's okay if you don't plan it. I changed my major 6 times. It's okay. Don't feel stressed out about that. But yes, because I changed my major so many times, I was behind, which I did not want to be behind, and I wanted to graduate on time, which is why one of my main advices would be to build a team. Build your team and stick together and communicate. And that is how you can be successful and graduate on time. And that was the main thing that really helped me, because there was definitely a lot of things that went amiss during my experience. But, well, okay, so I'll go back. So I was behind, and the only way for me to graduate on time was to take 2 consecutive study abroad programs. One, I had to find myself because I was behind on my language requirements to study, because I didn't decide to study Japanese until my junior year. And in order to do the program that I wanted to do, which was the long-term year-long program, I needed 2 years of language, which I did not have. So I spent a summer at a very intensive language school. So I came here in July 3 years ago, beginning of July 3 years ago. And when I came here, I had already decided I would not be coming back. And I did not know if I could do that, but I literally got rid of all of my belongings and put everything I own in like 1 suitcase. And I went to Japan, and with the thought process that I would not come back. So I had to test out of 1 year of language by the time, like in the summer. A whole year at DePaul I had to do in 2 months. And I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but when I got to Kyoto, my university in Kyoto, I had to take a placement test, and I did not place out of, I did not pass originally. But, and this is why I stress so much of why studying abroad really enhances your language ability, is because the only reason the university let me move forward, even though I did not pass the placement test, was because my language ability had improved so vastly in just the 2 months that I spent in the summer. So in 2 months, I learned enough language to pass an entire year at DePaul. And it was great. So that's how I was able to be successful with that. The way, I guess, the next point on here is, yes. Okay, so my experience and how it helps me now is, obviously I still live here, which means my language ability is to the level that I need to be successful here on my own. And I think the main thing that I would say that I benefited from was independence and confidence and pride and growth and understanding of the world in both positive and negative terms. Because moving across the world with no family, and I didn't know anybody who lives here, and I didn't speak the language, and it was very, very difficult at first. But I have so much pride and confidence in myself because I was able to overcome those difficulties and to create a life here. And that's one thing that I would say is different about short-term programs versus long-term programs, is that long-term programs are very much, you set the schedule. it's like most of it is just you just move there, and then you have to do your life, and you have to do tourism, you have to make friends and all these things. Whereas I feel like my experience with short-term programs was that it was very like guided. So it set up a lot of opportunities to experience the culture and make friends and communicate with native Japanese speakers. Whereas when I was on my own for the year, I had to do that all on my own. And so that is one thing that I would say is different between those two, but definitely both are very like beneficial. And I know time, maybe we're going kind of long here, sorry, Cara, but my advice would be, of course, I already said, build your team. And because I was so late in deciding this decision, one of my advice is do not wait for somebody else to tell you that you can do something. You gotta go, and you gotta go do it and make it for yourself. And you can do it. I know that anyone can do it if they decide that they want to do it. So that's kind of my story. Yeah.
Thank you, Allison. And I appreciate that very much about being determined and knowing, for you, it was, I need to get to Japan. I want to learn that language, and I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to let anything stop me. That's great. That's what when I studied abroad, oh my gosh, many years ago, it was the same thing. My grandfather was French, and I wanted to reconnect with my heritage. And I'd always grown up hearing French and Italian spoken in my house. And my grandmother was Italian, my grandfather was French. So we had this assortment of languages in my home. And for me, it was so important to get to France and to reconnect and to listen to the language and build the confidence to speak the language. And I was determined. I had no money, but I made it happen. So same thing for you, right? There's obstacles, but you chose not to let those obstacles keep you from Japan. So thank you so much for waking up so early to be with us. I know it's very early there in Japan, in Kyoto, where you are. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to open it up now. If anyone has questions for the five of us, I've also listed our email addresses here in case you want to contact us directly or start a conversation or ask questions. So please feel free. You're welcome to take a screenshot of this to save it for later. Instead of frantically writing down the questions. But you're welcome to, if you have questions, you can unmute and pose the question verbally, or you're welcome to put the question in the chat function as well. So I'll allow a minute for that.
Hi, hello. I don't have any really thing to ask, but thank you all so much for talking and about your experiences and stuff like that. I'm a junior, and I had a short-term study abroad during my first year in China, and I tried to set up a study abroad this year with Kara Miller to go to Japan for about 6 months, but that fell through. So I guess I just wanted to come here to try to get myself motivated to try and do all that over again and try and figure out the best way to go forward.
Everyone should come.
Yeah. We're still trying, pandemic era or not, we are still trying to get students abroad in responsible ways. So, we will be adding virtual options to our programming, and but we're still doing what we do. We still believe strongly in study abroad for students. So we'll do our best to get students overseas in a safe and responsible way on programs that we decide are feasible for this next year. So keep trying, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can help in any way, please let me know.
Thanks. I